Alright, I said I wanted to make a quick video introducing Exam 3, and so this is it. I just wanted to kind of quickly recap exam expectations. These aren't necessarily new, but I just kind of want to highlight some things. I haven't necessarily been able to get through all the HonorLock videos. So if you aren't following the exam expectations, your exam could be a 0. So you're going to be using a computer, pretty basic. You probably know that already. This exam, it opened yesterday, Wednesday, and will close midnight on Monday, or just before midnight on Monday, so go ahead and plan for that. If you know you don't have great internet at home, plan to come to the school and take it. Do something. Anyway, just to make sure that you are ready. Now, I do know that many students are using the web-based version of Excel, and you need to get the app or the program and run it for modules 7 or 8, at least one of those. So you should be there. If you do that, it's less bandwidth for your computer or your internet. So then that might help with that. You can use the formula sheet, and it's getting quite useful. You really should be using Excel. I think in this exam, I'm only letting you submit work in Excel. So if you end up using scratch paper, take pictures, pop them into your spreadsheet, and submit it that way. But you really should be using Excel at this point. And if you don't submit exam work, you won't get any credit for your exam. We'll be using HonorLock to proctor it. If weird things happen, your video shuts off, that kind of stuff, you need to talk to me. Most likely you'll have to try to retake it. Obviously some people try to skirt around the integrity things. That stuff happens. We just got to be a little bit aware. If you're taking it in person, schedule it with me, and we'll still be using HonorLock. We'll just have a few different things. Okay, important thing here. I should see you doing the work no matter what. And I mean like your actual hands. I know it's a little difficult to balance your face, your hands, that kind of stuff. So getting a separate camera that can kind of view from the side might be helpful. You can check that stuff out from the library, as long as they have some. If you need help with something like that, yeah, go ahead and try. But it's important, so even if you just have to move the camera down while you're working, I know that might be tough to see your screen, but get creative with that. But I should be able to see you doing the work. And I shouldn't necessarily have to watch the HonorLock video to see it, but obviously it's expected to be your work as you do the exam. We're hoping not using search functions and fun things like that. So again, this is the third exam. I just wanted to recap some things because I noticed a couple things as I've been viewing videos on the second one, and I just don't want you to have 2 exams be scored as 0s because that would be majorly detrimental. Your exam work, you need to submit it in Canvas. You should be using Excel. I use that to try to give feedback. The process is what's really important. So you might submit your exam and you might get a score, and then when I go back and view it, I can't see you actually doing the work. So people are actually losing points for not showing their work on problems. It's important. The process is really where it's at, and that's what I'm looking for. That's why I need to see the work in Excel. Submitting a PDF of your work in Excel doesn't really help because I can't see the work in the cells. And again, WAMAP kind of grades all or nothing, drawing pictures and things like that still for the distributions and the p-value. That's really helpful so that I can make sure I understand as much of your process as possible. I've been trying to make videos going over exactly how I would show my work in Excel. You don't necessarily have to do that, but the easier it is for me to understand what you're doing, the better chance there is that you can get more points for it, right? If I have to make assumptions about what you know, that doesn't necessarily help with the points. So as you're working in Excel, if you're getting X bar or P hat or whatever, label those as well as you can so that I can at least know, hey, you know this much. Sort of a good first step with a question is just deciphering from the text of the question to what do I know mathematically about it, gathering those variables. And then sometimes you can just look at the formula sheet and see where you'll go from there. So again, you should be using Excel. Scratch paper is allowed if you want to do your drawings and stuff that way. Just capture those images, put them in your spreadsheet, and that should be great. If you're using Excel, you need to start with a new one. You shouldn't be opening up old ones and copying and pasting stuff. That would be considered cheating. So please don't do that. And then please don't make your work a treasure hunt, right? I got to get through a lot of these, and the more time I have to spend searching through yours, the less likely you are to get credit for a problem. So we're in college now. You can put each one on a new sheet and have sheet 1 be problem 1, sheet 2 problem 2, so on and so forth. Or you can just label them I do a lot of like copying and pasting my work in Excel when I'm working through the problems. You don't need to do that because I'll be able to see it in the cells. So don't bother necessarily, I'm going to say, wasting your time with that. But you don't necessarily need to make up work or copy and paste that work because I'll be able to see it in your Excel spreadsheet. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, make sure you get it taken care of before the exam. And then, like I said, clear work. Generally, the better it is, the easier it is for me to read through it and get through it, the more likely you are to recover points or gain points. The exam review. If you know how to do that, kind of my suggestion would be to get through all the material and then go through that exam review. And any questions that you struggle with, kind of make note of what kinds of questions those are, and then go back and practice those, sort of set up a system for it so that you're good to go. You need to do your exam in one session, and you have one attempt at each question. Some just general tips. Plan ahead. It's good if you're rested. Show your work clearly. Take your time. Ask any questions you have before the exam. I plan to be working a fair amount. I'll at least plan to check in the morning and the evening as we go through this weekend to take care of questions. Maybe not so much on Sunday, but that's okay. I'll be around on Monday there. You should be allowed to copy and paste. Now, HonorLock has been making updates to try to lessen the usefulness of AI. But if you cannot copy and paste, please let me know. I did kind of add some time to this exam so that if you ended up having to copy it over, but you should be able to copy and paste. You might not be able to do snips. I think sometimes they're disabling hotkeys, so if you open the snip app, you might be able to use it, but you might not be able to use the hotkeys. But you might be able to. It's been different for different students, and depends a bit on what your computer settings are and fun things like that. But I'm hoping you can copy and paste the work just like I've been trying to do in the spreadsheet. You can take snips. Now, I can see the questions, so you don't necessarily need to put those in there for me, but if that helps you, you definitely can. I want to say good luck with the exam, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about the formula sheet. I have linked this to the announcement. I'll put it in the exam module too. You can print this out. You should show it when you show your scratch paper and stuff at the beginning. It needs to be a clean copy. You shouldn't have writing on it before the exam starts. But I just kind of wanted to run through some things as I was talking about the questions. So if you can kind of label these different variables as you get them in your question, sometimes it's helpful about choosing what you're doing here. So confidence intervals, we sort of started with those. We have some errors. These are your margin of error functions for your confidence interval. And then we've really done these top two. I know people really like M as the mean, but X bar is actually our abbreviation for the mean. So these are the ones we're using. Over here are test statistics in this little column, and we have gone through these right here. So if the data you're getting is X bar and standard errors, which where standard errors are down here, how we generate those. When you have a t-test statistic, you should be using a t-distribution formula for your p-value. When you have a z-score here, so notice these are proportions. If you're dealing with proportions, you're talking normal stuff, normal scores. Okay, so just some kind of helpful hints. Again, the standard errors are down here. We've got our pooled proportion ones. We've got our claims here with a proportion. And notice this is P and Q. This comes from the claim. As over here we have P hat and Q hat. That's from our sample. So pay attention to the small things as you're working through these. And again, we're trying to build a system. Here's the degrees of freedom. Fancy function. Anyway, so just a few things to think about as you get ready for the exam. Good luck, and please let me know if you have any questions.